So good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on this joint meeting of the Swansea Public Service Board. As you probably picked up from the agenda and emails that have gone out, this will be a relatively short meeting. We're looking at around 30 minutes, and the plan is then that we will close the public session and go into a more informal session following this meeting. So thank you all for joining today. Alison, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair. Apologies today from Councillor Rob Stewart, from Martin Evans of NLW, Mark Wade and Ness Young from Swansea Council.
Great, thank you, Alison. So item 2, any disclosures of personal or prejudicial interest? Thank you, I can't see anyone indicating. And on to then item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. That's pages 2 to 7 on the agenda. Haven't been notified of any amendments or changes. Is everybody happy they're an accurate record? Great, okay, thank you very much. And so that takes us on to public question time. Alison, any questions from the public?
No questions have been received, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Okay, and that's on then to item 6, and we have with us this afternoon Susie Richards, who's going to take us through the local wellbeing plan update. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, sorry. Excellent. Okay, so just to take you very briefly through this briefing, which also went to Scrutiny Programme Committee on the 18th. We're looking at the moment at our wellbeing plan. The draft wellbeing objectives have been agreed during the summer on the 11th of August by the Joint Committee. Since that time, officers have been working on the plan alongside the groups involved with the wellbeing objective, working towards working towards a draft, which we can then take through to consultation on the 22nd of November. The paper itself sets out the background to the plan itself and the objectives. It looks at the purpose for that plan and our statutory responsibilities. As I just mentioned, it sets out the draft objectives, which is very much about maintaining continuity, because despite the huge disruptions of COVID, Brexit, the war in Ukraine, cost of living crisis, what we've actually found as a result of consultation during the assessment process and looking at the outcomes from the assessment itself, long-term well-being, what we want in terms of quality of life and those long-term ambitions for 2040 that we had such a massive response from the public for back in 2018 actually remain very similar, whereas it's the actions and how we do what we do which perhaps is where we want to put our efforts and focus moving forward in this next plan. So the draft objectives themselves are detailed within the paper. I won't go through them for speed. The process itself, we started off with initial response analysis and the workshop which the Joint Committee held back in August. We've met with the Future Generations Commission. We have a statutory period of support of 14 weeks. We've met twice with them and documents have been going back and forth. I'm pleased to report that some of the models that we've developed have actually been shared by the Future Generations Office with other PSBs across Wales as examples of best practice and to give others ideas of the sorts of approaches they may wish to consider. And they've also given us some useful advice, which is helping to shape the development of the plan. In terms of engagement, which is really, I think, the phase of involvement that we're really going into all guns blazing now. Formal engagement starts on the 22nd of November, with formal consultation through until next February 14th. But we have started the pre-engagement with some groups, and we're looking at developing that. So there's going to be quite a heavy period of very genuine engagement. This is not a plan which we're looking for rubber stamping or for just nodding from the public and our partners. This engagement opportunity is something which is very much going to directly feed and will, change direction and augment the framework which we've put in place to date and is still developing. So partnership forum took place. That was open to every organisation in Swansea, private sector, public sector and third sector. That was well attended. I believe there were around 50 representatives. Really great input in terms of potential steps, particularly that we can take forward as a PSB in our next wellbeing plan. Yesterday we held a Three Horizons future analysis workshop that was attended by around 30 partners, again including community representatives from across Swansea, and that's given us some really interesting context, and I'm speaking for myself, it made me view the steps and potential actions in a way that I hadn't certainly considered them before. I know that's true for others too. So that information will be collated and used to inform the development of the plan from this stage forward. We're moving on now to evaluation and selection of the steps. We've got very specific criteria that was based on the lessons that we learned from the past plan, and that's pretty much where we're at the moment, and we'll be taking the plan forward before out to consultation with the draft. Communications plan, again, that's really where we're at the moment. The planning group will be meeting in about a week or two to really focus on an action plan to support our engagement strategy. And consultation moving forward is the next stage. So any questions, I'd be pleased to take.
Thank you, Susie. Obviously an incredible amount of work going on behind the scenes and also in public engagement. So really my thanks to you and everybody involved for getting us to this point. Still quite a lot to do, and that engagement is going to be really important going forward. So thank you. Roger?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Susie. And if you could pass my thanks along with the Chair's thanks for putting this together and all the work that's gone behind the scenes, because it is, not to be underestimated. There's a lot of work that's gone on to generate to get to this point. It was just a point, and I'm sure the Chair will back me up. We sat through a scrutiny committee meeting a couple of days ago, and a lot of questions were asked in terms of the consultation, where we'd had some 330 responses. Did we feel that was a good response? We did provide a little bit of context in terms of the wider, certainly the PSBs that we cover. I was able to give a little bit of context in terms of actually that you always want more, and you always want a little bit more sort of engagement, and it's a very difficult thing to do, and I appreciate that from our own organisational context. But certainly within Pembrokeshire and Carmarthenshire, our figures are probably more encouraging. So it does perhaps provide a little bit of a wider context of engagement with the public. But some of the suggestions that came in out of that was, that some of these documents are by necessity quite long-winded, a lot of information in there, and perhaps are not always seen as, for certain groups, as accessible as we could make them. So there was some suggestions around the sort of easy read of the executive summary, so we could make that perhaps as just thinking about the way people engage, more graphical and all that sort of thing. So we did throw that back as well, that we would certainly feed that back into the process, so that we would try and encourage more. But understanding it is a difficult process. We're out to consultation at the moment, and you're battling a lot of other organisations who are in that same space as well. So we did try and certainly, I wouldn't say push back, is probably the wrong word, I guess, Chair, but certainly try to provide some context and some, that is a good news story as well, albeit we'd always want to see more engagement.
Yeah, 330 responses. sadly, is probably a fairly respectable return given the consultation fatigue across Wales. I know some PSBs would be extremely happy to have received that input, which doesn't make it acceptable. I'd also question whether consultation is, it's not everything. A certain type of, sometimes it's a certain type of input that consultation represents, and actually going to where people are, having qualitative face-to-face engagement and capturing that in qualitative ways, which perhaps aren't as easy to demonstrate in a headline figure. That's as, if not more important, for actually influencing, you know, what is taken, and that enables us to reach out to a wider diversity of the population as well. So absolutely, we've got more to do, but I think it's maybe the way that we do it, as well as that formal tick boxes exercise. It's about talking to people and having conversations rather than statistics and boxes being ticked coming back at us. So that's something we're certainly focusing on. Oh, and we're looking at working with local organisation on Easy Read, not just to translate what we come up with, but to actually work with a group to look at so we think in Easy Read for everybody, not just those with initial needs. And I think that will really help the outcomes too.
I think as well, thanks, Susie. And I think the other point I made, and I think and the chair made as well, was if you try and remove something, if you try and change something in the public sector, whether that's you know, a facility, a school, or a health provision, fire station, police station, all those sorts of things that are tangible and are single item issues, you tend to get a lot more public engagement. It's when these are sort of generic documents that are, you know, and there's still a the best phrase, a general, sound like Stephen Fry now, a general ignorance around PSBs and the work that we do, which is, you know, part of the education piece that we need to take on as well. I think, you know, I think 330 is reasonably good, although, you know, clearly we want to aspire to get that number up again. But yeah, thanks, Susie.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. And yeah, I know, you know, everyone is doing a survey or a follow-up customer satisfaction these days, aren't they? And everybody's quite fed up from all the organisations that are contacting them. So it is a difficult, and it's a different world now, because I know people have been inundated. So I'm with Roger on this. I think it was quite a healthy feedback, even though the numbers were relatively low. It's quite healthy for public consultation. So no, that's great. And you know, going forward, I know I've got particular interest in the climate and nature recovery work stream, and I really support the potential of widening out that group so that we can include as many partners as possible and get as much reach as we can in terms of people feeding into that particular work stream. And you know, that's going to be quite exciting, I think. So my thanks to you and the team. I can't see anyone else indicating regarding any questions. So thank you. And I'll move on to the next item, which is the performance framework highlight reports from the 4 work streams. These work streams have obviously led by different organisations. So perhaps it would be appropriate to go to the work stream leads for any updates, or Susie, are you taking this item as well?
I believe the workstream leads is probably the most appropriate place right now.
Roger, you're one of the workstream leads. Sorry to pick on you, but did you want to go first?
Yeah, happy to do that, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, so if you recall, each of the statutory partners picked up an individual lead within the work streams. The Fire and Rescue Services picked up the Stronger Communities lead. We've I'd be true to say, and I was quite clear and open and honest in the scrutiny panel that certainly COVID has impacted on us. We've addressed some of the issues, and some of the what I've tried to make going forward is a position where we're looking at the key work that we do. We've been asked now for some qualitative and quantitative measures to try and establish way markers, milestones, so we can see progress. It's quite difficult, it's quite challenging in certain areas in terms of the measurements and the work that we do and seeing the impact. But within within the report you see in front of you today now, we've just got some examples of some of the work we've done. What we are finding it hard to do, I guess, is to provide actually, we did this, this happened, this was the outcome. And I think a lot of all topic areas will find that quite challenging. But I have reconvened the group. Amanda, who's on the call today, Amanda Carr from Swansea CBS, has thankfully for me, has gratefully taken on the role of leading the sort of practitioner group. So I'm very grateful, very grateful to Amanda as she brings her expertise into this space as well. But we are resetting things in terms of a work plan going forward, and we're reaching out to all partners in terms of where we can we measure some of the things we do, I think the other feature, I think, Chair, was not only from the scrutiny group's perspective, what are the milestones, what are the way markers that we can actually prove some positive direction of travel, but also the key question of what value the PSB is adding in this space in terms of would this have happened anyway type sort of conversation. So how much of it is of benefit when we come together as collaborative partners, that we are able to, for the wider benefit of communities, rather than sort of some sort of silo or parochial mentality, just develop our own things for our own needs and our own statutory areas. So where is that wider economic and social value as well? So we've had, and this is quite timely in terms of the Fire and Rescue Service, there's been a national study that's come in terms of certainly the work that we do, but that can also extend to partnership working as well. So there's a lot of work that's going on nationally. We've had to extrapolate some of the data from a national basis. A lot of the next pieces of work will drill down into Wales and hopefully to West Wales separately. And we'll be able to show that the value of working with partners and that wider economic and social value as well. So those are the key areas I wanted to focus on. The report is there. I'm happy to take any, like I say, we've got all the evidence of information that we've gone and put into that report. A lot of qualitative KPIs that we've reported on currently, but we will be looking to develop those further in the future as well. Happy to take any comments, observations. The final point I would make, and I think with Hamish on the line, it's really important to feed back into NRW. We originally had smallish grants that come into PSBs that we'd bid for, and a lot of good work that's gone on there. So that was an example of actually PSBs adding some value in this space and coming together. Monies that would probably not been available or available in a different way, possibly. And we also made the reference to the grants that we'd put in for, or the recent grants that have been offered up, and we bid for those as well to see if, again, we can do on a collaborative basis. So there is evidence out there of positive actions that have come out of the PSB as well.
Thank you, Roger. That's a really good summary. Some great work going on. Any questions for Roger or any comments, observations? No, thank you, Roger. Sorry to put you on the spot to go first, but I do note that quite a few of the workstream leads are not present today, but and I won't pick on any of the reserves who are attending in their absence, but if anybody has anything else to add regarding any of the highlight reports, please feel free to do so now.
I'm happy to have a brief chat through the working with nature.
Yes, please, Hamish, over to you.
Yeah, because obviously that work stream is led by NRW together with Swansea Environmental Forum, and Martin takes the time to do that himself personally. And if you look down to the report, one of the highlights there is that, you know, the numbers of stakeholders are involved. And in a way, following on from Roger's comment about what work would you be doing anyway versus what work has the PSB sort of precipitated or incentivized or made happen, it becomes a bit of a circular discussion in a way, because a lot of the work that I do or my team does as so-called day job, to some extent, is based around items in the wellbeing plan and the working with nature. So I think the Working with Nature plan has definitely impacted on all of those partners' work. And as you go down to that, you'll see green infrastructure. Certainly our green infrastructure work that we've been doing with Swansea and with the housing associations and a range of other partners wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the objective within the PSB to allow us internally to look for that funding to fund Fran Rolf's time there. So that is to some extent a day job work that's been prioritised and made happen because of the Working with Nature plan. So as in common with others, you can see the report. There's quite a lot of stuff there, looking at some of the progress in terms of green infrastructure. The Nature Recovery Plan, which is being developed by the Nature Partnership, again feeds into some of the stuff within the Working with Nature work stream. So it goes down through transport, active and sustainable travel, etc., all being made to happen really by the Working with Nature plan. Obviously, some of the challenges, integration of the topics, I think is something that we always talk about, isn't it? Making sure that there's enough cross-fertilization between the different work streams and how one work stream is impacting and helping the other. Resourcing is always a challenge. We're grateful to Swansea Environmental Forum for doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this work area, but obviously certain challenges faced there. And I think there remains the action to bring some of this work to the PSB and the Partnership Forum to perhaps work on it a little more, as suggested in the actions at the end. So, as I say, I wasn't involved in the writing of the report, but I am working on some of these issues myself. So if you've got any questions, then fire away.
Thank you, Hamish. And NRW were mentioned in dispatches at scrutiny for the great partnership working that's going on, particularly the green infrastructure training in terms of green walls and green roofs. Yeah. It's really it's addressing the skills gap in those green skills, which we know is there, and it's really invaluable.
That's a good point, because it's moving way beyond. I mean, the opportunity for green infrastructure in Swansea is great. We're starting to make an impact. We're getting to the point where Swansea will, I think, be known for good green infrastructure. It's moving outside of the city centre to the wider county. But the opportunity for green jobs, for perhaps social enterprises, is all there. And I think it's really, really important that we work on those areas as well. So yeah, that's a very good point.
Great, thank you, Hamish. I can't see anybody indicating further, so my thanks to all the workstream leads. Some really great work going on, and some fantastic things highlighted in the update reports, the highlight reports. So I'm going to take us on, because I'm conscious of time and we've got the informal session due. We've got item 8, which is engagement, and there's going to be a brief discussion on this, which I'm sure we could probably elaborate further on in the informal session. But Susie, were you taking this item?
Whoops. I can. Let's have a look.
Sorry, I'm not sure whose name is against this item. Apologies.
I apologise. I'd just just looking at something else there. Right. Sorry. Okay, so the item itself, item 8, discussion. Okay, yeah. Engagement going forward. We've been discussions with West Glamorgan People First, Your Voice Advocacy, looking, I know they do a lot of work with the Health Board at the moment as well, and we're looking at how they can help us to create a conversation which is not only literally accessible to people with additional learning needs, but is more accessible to everybody. So that's going to be a big thing going forward. We're also coming into formal engagement through consultation period at the 22nd to the 4th of next month until the 14th of February. That opportunity, it's a 3-month consultation period, and it certainly isn't rubber stamping. So it's to take that on board. I suppose the planning group's role going forward is going to be to really focus on how we can make that come alive. Just before I pass this over to the group to discuss, what we're looking from the PSB's partners going forward is, if we can, to piggyback on your networks, because your voice is the appropriate one to communicate with your service users, the citizens that you know, the people that you understand, and you literally speak their language, rather than a PSB or a council trying to connect where no connection maybe has previously existed. So we've got, we're building a diary of events which we know are taking place. Again, piggybacking on what work is already being undertaken. So the council, for example, has a large engagement event planned on the 18th of November. We'll be participating in that. There's work going on with the Ageing Well Steering Group. There's work going on with our Children's Board. And again, bringing all the partners into that and looking at where there are existing groups, where there's events going on that we can stand on the shoulders of to reach a wider audience, or where we can put sessions on. Community councils in particular are important to engage. We've been lucky to benefit from attendance at both the Partnership Forum and the Three Horizons workshop from Mumbles Community Council, who are, I believe, the only community council in Swansea who are subject to the duty. That means that the wellbeing plan is something that they have to report on in 5 years' time. Therefore, it's important to involve them in the development of that plan. We've got a duty to involve all community councils, and we've got a booking for a Community and Town Council Forum looking at the wellbeing plan later in the year as well. But particularly as a representative, Mumbles have been great in coming forward, and I imagine they will be cascading that back to their colleagues. So that's maybe a starter for 10. I wondered perhaps how the partners can feed into that engagement activity.
Thank you, Susie. Anyone wish to give any comments on that? Okay, so yeah, Hamish. So
we we've been doing some work nationally. There's Natira Ni, for example, a consultation I think we're just finishing. So I guess we could pull out some of the stuff, particularly if we can sort of disaggregate it geographically. I don't know whether we can, and feed that into the engagement, because it's not directly linked, but because a lot of the issues that we're working on, and our corporate plan is going to be based around the climate emergency, nature emergency, and pollution prevention, all of which are relevant. So I guess we could look at some of the consultations that we have done, maybe on flooding as well, and pull out what the learning points from that and people's feelings and use that to inform some of the work we do. Is that relevant? I don't know.
Certainly add to the process.
Yeah.
We're particularly keen, I guess, sort of standing on the shoulders of giants, if you like, of the work that's out there. And one of the ways that we did that quite successfully, I think, while doing that, is with, for example, the Nature Recovery Conference that was really well attended by partners across Swansea. We've used the actions from that forum to inform our steps as potential steps that we're going to examine, or sub-steps really within the action plans, so that all that information and knowledge doesn't get lost. We actually process it, collate it, and we'll boil them down into options that each objective then can look at taking forward. So absolutely, please do that. But yep, let's talk to people direct as well.
Yeah, and the Nature Recovery Partnership is working on. It's got a consultation next month, or the end of this month, I think. So another one. So a workshop. So I guess we need to cross correlate some of that with what we're doing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Hamish. That's really helpful. Okay, Karen.
Thanks. Yeah, so we've got obviously quite active engagement with our health board, with our sort of public and with our staff, so I'm sure we can link you in with, you know, Joabba Davies and her colleagues who have already got those really strong links, Susie. So I'm not sure what particular engagement you've got on at the moment, probably around particular service areas, which wouldn't be appropriate, but we can absolutely link you in. I'm sure you know Joe already anyway.
Thanks, Karen. That's really welcomed. And I'm sure, Susie, I'm obviously aware that there are a number of people who aren't present today. So perhaps, you know, that ask can go out through Leanne to the network to make that request. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so items 9 and 10 are for information only. So I'm going to bring this meeting to a close. The next formal meeting is due on Thursday, the 15th of December at 3 p.m. So I'm going to ask Alison to stop recording now and officially thank you all for attending the formal meeting today. But please don't disappear.